I'm looking at Dad's composition book from 1941 to 1942. He's 15 years old, carefully recording American history lessons as World War II rages across oceans. His handwriting is still perfect. His dedication to learning is unchanged. But this is where I start seeing cracks. Here's where the world begins teaching this beloved boy that there's no place for who he really is. Let's begin with 1942. Dad watches his older brothers Walter and Earl prepare to serve their country. In small Minnesota towns, military service isn't just duty, it's how boys prove they're men. Dad knows that he won't follow them. His cleft palate, combined with flat feet, make him 4F, medically unfit for military service. The draft board basically says, Roy Skoog is defective. This rejection cuts deep because military service ran in Dad's blood. His father, Olaf, had immigrated to America at 19 aboard the USS Lusitania, the same ship the Germans would sink just 1 year later. Despite being a recent immigrant, Olaf served in the Army during World War I. It's how he became a naturalized citizen. Dad's 2 oldest brothers followed their father's example, proudly serving their country. 2 generations of Skoog men proving their American worth through military service. And then there's Roy, classified 4F, breaking the family tradition. I think this is when Dad learned to play harmonica. During those long months watching his peers prepare for war while he stayed behind. He never talked to me about this time, which tells me he was probably doing some serious soul-searching. The timeline is difficult to pin down, but at some point he started a trucking company with his brother Kenneth, hauling cattle and finding his own way to matter when the traditional path was closed. But that first big rejection, it settled deep. The military thing was bureaucratic, you know. Some faceless draft board stamping papers, but the church rejection, that was personal, and that was cruel. Because here's the thing, his parents understood him perfectly. His siblings did too. Those kids in that 1939 diary were flirting with him, asking for his autograph. Mom understood every word that he said. All 9 of us kids did too. At work, he was respected and valued. Fellow truckers had 0 problems communicating with him on CB radios. The church was literally the only place where Dad's voice became a joke. Mom told me about this years later, her voice breaking. Certain men at church made fun of Dad, she said. This broke my heart then, and it still hurts saying it now. This confident, beloved boy, who'd been understood his entire life, suddenly encounters men who find his difference entertaining. So Dad gets excluded from church leadership roles, and it's not because he can't communicate, but because these particular men choose not to listen. And here's the thing that kills me. Dad never complained, not even once. What was he risking if he fought back? Everything. This was his community, his wife's faith, his kids' future. So Dad chose silence. Not because he was weak, but because he understood what fighting would cost. So he sits in the pews watching other men take leadership roles that could have been his. Every incident teaches him the same lesson. Speak less. Take up less space. Make yourself blend into the background. This is when work becomes everything to Dad. While other men get respect through church leadership, Dad pours his rejection into purpose. He will prove his worth through sheer consistency. This exploration of how rejection shapes us continues in my newsletter, Things I Meant to Tell You, where I write about the messy work of understanding our families after leaving behind the beliefs that built us. If these stories of quiet resilience resonate with you, I'd love to have you join the community on Substack. But there's one place where Dad can still be himself. The farm. Animals don't care how you sound when you're feeding them. Chickens mind their business when you're collecting their eggs, and cows don't judge your voice when you're milking them. On our small farm, Dad's enormous hands, folded neatly in church, are perfect for practical work. These aren't chores to him. They're proof he's competent in a world that keeps telling him he's not. By his 20s, Dad figured out the pattern. The military doesn't want him. The church marginalizes him. But work? Honest, practical work? That's where he can prove himself. Dad's famous reliability isn't natural personality. It's survival strategy. Can't belong through your voice? Belong through dependability. Can't lead through speech? Lead through example. Dad becomes a truck driver, spending decades navigating Minneapolis and St. Paul roads. Perfect work for someone who's learned his voice is a liability. Hours alone in the cab, proving himself through his perfect driving record. That million-mile certificate I found? That's not just work achievement. That's evidence of worth in a world that taught him his worth was questionable. But what did this cost him? Looking at that 1939 diary, I see a naturally social, confident, charismatic kid. Girls flirting with him, friends treasuring him, and teachers seeing leadership potential. By the time I knew him, all that was carefully hidden. Dad had learned to be charming in small, safe ways. The water hose attacks, the impish smile. But that larger confidence, that natural leadership, the world had taught it out of him. I'm realizing Dad's gentleness wasn't just character. It was protection. His practical love wasn't preference. It was adaptation. His tendency to fade into the background wasn't modesty. It was learned survival. Dad figured out that the safest way to exist was to be useful without being noticeable, reliable without being remarkable. Next week, we'll dig into the marriage layer, where Dad found love with Mom, but maybe even lost more of himself. But here's what this layer shows me. That beloved boy from the 1939 diary didn't choose to disappear. The world taught him it was the only way to survive. My question isn't why Dad was so quiet. It's how he managed to keep any sense of himself under all that pressure to vanish. Next week, we explore how even love required Dad to make himself smaller.